Came back at the perfect time to see that message. No. I think that's one of the later games. I didn't have time to gather all the details before coming in here. This testimony might be my only source of information. Better pay attention and read this letter carefully. Shot dead. Well, big problem with this is that this is a single shot musket ball kind of thing. Present badge. Let's see, 67 male, April 13th, between 11:30 p.m. Loss of bullet from bullet wound. Nope, malignant tumor found in the victim's liver. Progressed to final stage with no hope of recovery. Patient has 3 months to live. Patient has chronic diabetes. Requires regular insulin. Washed and no signs of use. Oh yeah, I can actually inspect this. I always hated getting shots. I guess Magnify was giving himself the insulin shots. There's no way I could do that. Ugh. Wait, if Magnify used this to inject his insulin, why are there no traces of it having been used? Because they give him a new needle every time. Maybe he didn't do it yet, I don't know. Let's see, 13th, 11:05 p.m., ready a gun, which you will shoot one shot. Oh, there we go. Never mind. The witness's statement is clearly faulty, Your Honor. I'm sorry, but I can see nothing faulty. Unfortunately, I will have to penalize you, Mr. Wright. No! I must be on the wrong track. Let's just press it instead. So, let me get this straight. You're saying my client first shot the clown, then shot the victim. Hey, not a bad summary, pal! More of a confirmation than a summary, but whatever. It was really more of a confirmation than a summary. But our defense attorney seems pleased enough with himself. Do these people ever miss a chance to mock me? Well, now that Mr. Wright's gotten that out of his system, shall we continue with the testimony? I didn't have time. Oh, this is the same thing as before. I feel like it skipped. Yeah, it skipped from this statement to the sixth statement once I pressed that, so let's press the rest of it. You mean this pistol? The one in the crime scene photo? That's the one! It's a funny looking gun, so there's no mistaking it. We compared the bullet taken from the victim's skull with a bullet fired from this gun. The rifling marks on the bullets were a perfect match. So, you verified the murder weapon, in other words. You bet we did! Why are you so certain? What pile of sand has your head been stuck in all this time, pal? Never heard of Zack and Valent's quick draw shoot 'em? Huh? What's that? What are the defendant's specialties? Zack and Valent stand on either side of a girl. Then they shoot, but the bullets don't hit her. Instead, they hit everything else on stage. This was one of the pistols they used in their show. You got a great design, huh? The kids love it. Many boys and girls joined the police because of that pistol, I hear. You know, that would explain a lot about the police force. Troop Gramarye stopped doing that act a while ago. The old man held onto that pistol ever since. Court would like to see the pistol in question. You got it, sir. Here she is. Wow, this is certainly a blast from the past. It's a stage pistol for magic shows, see? But I can fire real bullets. Looks so much bigger in real life than on TV. Yeah, but I can only hold one round. By the way, the pistol's firing chamber's empty. And it shows traces of having been fired recently. So, were any fingerprints found on the gun? Unfortunately, no. Of course, the defendant is known for wearing gloves. You might say that a lack of fingerprints is, in fact, a fingerprint of its own. Ah, intriguing point. Well made. Oh, not well made, not intriguing. In any case, the court accepts this evidence. My grandchild would get a kick out of seeing this. But now's the time to return to our testimony. Finally, I have the gun. Objection! One shot. The trickiest cases often seem the simplest. Prosecutor Gavin, you missed the bullet hole in the clown's forehead. If you hadn't missed that, you might have come to a very different conclusion. Understand? Yo, this is a teaching moment. Just like Bean Dad. Yeah, but I just said, pal. After he shot the clown in the forehead, he went and... Objection! Did nothing of the sort to the victim. The pistol proves he could not. The murder weapon? How? It's quite simple, Your Honor. This pistol only holds one bullet at a time. Ugh. If he had shot the clown in the forehead, he couldn't have shot the victim too. Yarg! Pirate gumshoe. That's not a contradiction, not even close! All they had to do was reload the pistol after the first shot. Oh? Where did he get the extra bullet? They're not so easy to come by, you know? If you claim the defendant had one already, then prove to us how he got it. I had a feeling this wasn't over yet. No, this party's just getting started. And I haven't proven anything yet, beyond my good looks and startling record sales. And utter lack of humility. What's this? It seems the prosecution has another witness prepared. Like I said, Air Detective was just a warm-up act. Now that the audience has gotten a taste of what's to come, they're ready. Ready for what? My decisive witness, of course. A witness who, you will find, can prove one thing for us. That it was Zach Gramarye who shot the victim in the forehead. Very well. We'll pause for a 15-minute recess. This might be my lucky break. I'll need that 15 minutes to talk to my client, Zach. Court is adjourned. Hey, Zach, what the heck? What's going on here, man? Very impressive, Mr. Wright. I have to say, I was expecting nothing less. I expected nothing less. We've only just begun. I was hoping you could tell me a bit more about what happened, actually. I did not think you would believe me if I told you. Better that you discovered the truth for yourself. I was thinking of you, you know. I think we need less thinking and more talking. That night in the hospital. What really happened? Ah, the way your eyes gleam, Mr. Wright. Don't scare Trucy. Speaking of which, where is she? You have seen the problem yourself. The letter. The one shot in the forehead. One, right? Yes, and the reason he speaks of. I could not deny my mentor's wishes, even if it meant my own death. Why not? This is something I will not say, for now, at least. What's this for now business? I've done many things in my life, some well, some poorly. But this is a cross we must bear alone to our graves. We? You wanted to know about the night of the incident? Finally, this guy sure likes to take his time getting to the important stuff. Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. I snuck into his room that night at the appointed time. And found there upon his bedside two tables. Upon his bedside table, two pistols. Two? Yes. The one I had used on stage. And the one that had been used by my partner, Valent. Oh, for the Zack and Valent's quick draw thing? My mentor had the look of one sleeping. I stood by his bedside, hearing only the light sound of his breathing. Then, I took the pistol into my hand. Cannot deny my resolve faltered then. For a moment. You faltered? You mean you shot about shooting him? Recall there was a reason I could not refuse his request. His last such request. Though, not his first. So, there were other requests you couldn't refuse before. To be honest, I've not always been steadfast. And I fear I've brought pain upon Trucy, as the audio cuts out a couple times. Was Magnify coercing his own disciples somehow? Just what was going on in Troop Gramarye? Yet, in the end, I did not shoot him. Instead, I turned and shot the clown. I took the pistol I had fired and placed it in my pocket. In your pocket? I believe if you examine the bullet in the clown's head, you'll find it to be different than the one in my mentor. What were those called? Rifling marks. Yes, well, that is all I have to tell you concerning the case. Concerning the case? You mean there's something else you can tell me? You are a fascinating man, Mr. Wright. Thanks? Yes, there is something. My mentor, his eyes opened. What? Magnify Gramarye? The old devil. He was not asleep, you see. Of course, the gunshot would have woken him up anyway. And there we had our last discussion as mentor and pupil. It was not a long discussion. Maybe 5-10 minutes or so. What did you talk about? Mr. Wright, did I not just tell you? It does not concern this case. Zack Gramarye seems pretty steadfast to me. Or maybe just stubborn. Mr. Wright, your presence is requested in the courtroom. Once again, I am in your hands. Right. Let's get back in there. April 19th. Court is now back in session. During our recess, a bullet was found in and dug out from the clown's head. Oh, this is news! And the rifling marks? It wasn't time to do a detailed analysis. Though they did find the weapon type matches the murder weapon. Well, that's not very conclusive, is it? Which is why I'm about to call my very decisive witness. Your decisive witness? How many times have I heard those words? Well, they often turn out to be far less decisive than you think. Oh, don't worry on my account. I'm quite confident this witness will do the job. After all, he is intimately acquainted with the players in our little production, being the other half of Troop Gramarye's famous duo, Zack and Valent. Valent Gramarye. So, we get to meet the great Magnify's other disciple. Yo, no beard! Perhaps we'll start by asking your name and occupation. Valent Gramarye, magician. Then you're the decisive witness, are you? You can prove your fellow student, your partner's guilt? Fate. A grand illusion filled with traps and tricks. Wait, the shooting took place in the hospital at 11 o'clock at night. If you're a witness, does that mean you were there that late? If one were to deduce this logically, the conclusion is... Yes! Okay. I always get the characters, don't I? I have an interesting fact for you. You see, several days before the crime, my witness received this. That looks very familiar. Wait, that's the same letter Zack Gramarye received. Yes, or perhaps I should say, ta-da! And what does it say? Surely not the same thing. Perhaps you should see for yourself. Well, I'm interested in lowering my life's curtain on 13th, 11/12. Did I say 1112? 1120. Already a gun with which you will shoot. One shot square in the forehead. You cannot refuse, and we both know the reason why. The court accepts this into evidence. The court accepts this into evidence. Shouldn't be so forceful when I stumble. I gotta get it right. This is most unusual. Exactly what was going on with you folks? What exactly was your troop grammary up to? By what you mean? I'm just having trouble envisioning a man who would ask his students to kill him. Both of them, no less. It's just my opinion, Herr Judge. But from these letters, I'd say he was coercing them, not asking them. We walked the magician's path together, and in so doing, shared much of our lives. When people are so close, there's strain. A warping of relations, you might say. Yet this has nothing to do with the case at hand. By which you mean you're not going to tell us. Which makes me wonder even more about this reason they couldn't confuse. Well, let's get on with this testimony for starters. The defendant, Zach Gramery, stands accused. Tell us why. Oh, I'll do more than that. For where he walks, the red roses rise. For where he walks, the red roses rise singing hymns to the miracle that is magic. Fascinating. Though I hardly need to remind you that the evidence could just as clearly point to you as the suspect. The letter, the murder weapon, and now the 2 bullets found at the scene. In fact, the only difference seems to be the designated time. As every magician knows, timing is everything. Yes. Yes. And now it's time to get this party fired up. Fired up. Yeah. Yeah, something. I came there afterwards, and he already had a bullet in his forehead, therefore it must have been Zach. That night, I visited the hospital room at the time Magnity requested. The smell of gunpowder hung in the room. My mentor has taken his final bow. I did not imagine my fellow student might have received the same instructions. Yet to deal with the dead is still a deal. Death's sweet kiss I gave to the clown. Then I informed the doctor and the police. So you're saying 2 gunshots went off that night. The doctor and none of the staff at the hospital noticed 2 gunshots going off. And also you're claiming, oh, I didn't do it because he did it. So you were the one who reported the crime. This dude's self-reporting. Indeed, I would think this fact alone would clear my name of suspicion. Let's not jump to any conclusions. Yes, the cross-examination generally comes before conclusions in this court. But if your testimony proves to be true, then the defendant, Zach Gramery, is guilty. Well, does that mean if his testimony proves to be false, that Val Gramery, is guilty instead? Oh my god. It's him or me. They're both pointing, well, one is pointing fingers at the other, and the other one was like, I didn't do it. No disappearing act will get you out of that. I missed the last line. The killer was you. Okay, yeah. Night of the crime. Which, according to the letter, was 11:20 p.m. Indeed. In magic, timing is everything. Right. Consider the illusion of teleportation. If I were to appear on stage before my stunt double has left, how would that look? Why, it would reveal the very secrets of my magic. Now that you revealed the very secrets of your magic for all of us, let's move on. You went at the designated time, and what did you see? The smell of gunpowder hung in the room. Oh boy. So, you weren't worried for your own safety at all? I mean, you smelled gunpowder, yes? What if the shooter was still nearby? I did not consider this, to be honest. It is forbidden for a magician to have a good imagination. Really? Isn't magic all about illusions and imagination? How about this? You were the shooter, which is why you weren't afraid. Now you are the one imagining. It is forbidden for a lawyer to have a good imagination. The witness will refrain from pausing so suspiciously before responding. My forbidden imagination is starting to imagine things. Yeah. I did not imagine. Yeah, of course you didn't imagine. You're not allowed to have an imagination. Which brings us back to this reason neither of you could refuse. So it does, and my partner, he did not refuse. But Magnify wrote the same thing to you. Why could you refuse if Zack couldn't? Because I have a will of steel. Of course, I also do this trick where I bend steel bars. So perhaps steel isn't also strong. So which is it? Which is it? Tell me! Mind if I continue? There were 2 bullet holes at the scene. One in the victim and one in the clown. You're saying the one who shot the clown was you? No doubt my partner Zack has said much the same thing. Yeah, because whoever didn't shoot the clown committed murder. I'd better dig around here a bit more and see what I turn up. Mr. Valent, let me ask you about something else concerning the crime scene. Namely, the location of the pistol. Where exactly was the pistol when you entered the room? Atop a small bedside table it was. As if to say, here I am, take me into your hand, pull my trigger, shoot him. The victim clearly wanted to be shot. But why? Perhaps he wanted to go out with a bang. Yet we will never hear the truth from his lips, so all we can do is guess. Is the location of the pistol all that important? Yeah, no, not really. Actually, let me ask about something else. Very well. The witness may continue with the testimony. What can I do but obey? Let's zoom through this. How many pistols were there when you entered the room? By which you mean what, precisely? 2 pistols were used in the Zack and Valent quick draw shoot-up, correct? 1 for each of you. You were well informed, yet only one of my old friends sat in the hospital room that night. What did Zack tell me back in the lobby? Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. Blah blah blah. 2 pistols. Took the pistol, placed it in his pocket. I see no problem with that statement. Only 1 pistol is visible in the photograph of the crime scene, after all. So you picked up that pistol and fired it. Indeed I did. Alakazam, Alakazing, Alakaboom. Is the number of pistols really so important? It's quite important. The number of pistols is quite important, Your Honor. Very well. Please add this detail to your testimony. What can I do but obey? So you took the only pistol there and fired it? That's correct. And that pistol was this one, which was left at the crime scene. Good show! I see you too are a magician of sorts. And you're an idiot of sorts. Do you have any idea what you just said? I see the fire in your eyes as you glare at the witness. So how about heating up this trial a bit? These slow ballads bore me. I've got a hunch, but maybe that's all it is. No need. On second thought, let's run with this testimony for a while longer.
Objection!
According to the defendant, Zack Gramry, when he entered the room, there were 2 pistols on that table. 2? One of those pistols he used to shoot the clown in the forehead. Then he left with it in his pocket. Of course, this is what he would say. Unlike the hapless clown, we must assume our defendant has some brains in his head. Well, what about what Mr. Valent has told us? You see, there's something about his testimony that doesn't make sense. What might that be? I told you, I took the pistol that was there and shot the clown. That's your story, at least. But the rifling marks tell a very different story, Mr. Valent. Recall what Prosecutor Gavin told us. Rifling marks, same bullet, same as the bullet. Mr. Valent, if you fired this pistol, then you shot the victim in the forehead. Wow, this is all rather sudden. What have I done? Prosecutor Gavin? I owe the court an apology. Sorry. Sorry for what? You see, I was unaware that 2 of these unique pistols were crafted. The analysis of the rifling marks only proved the type of gun that fired them. What the fuck is wrong with you? Objection! Then look at it. You said you verified the murder weapon. Which is why I'm apologizing to you now. Quite sincerely, I might add. Would you hold me accountable for a mistake made in my youth? That was just this morning. I'm still young. And, I might add, it wasn't really my fault. If the defendant had only admitted he took 1 pistol from the scene of the crime, we would not be having this pleasant discussion now. If he did say that he took the pistol from the scene of the crime, then Val would have pulled some bullshit. Valent Gramarye. Yes, Your Honor? You were presented to this court as a decisive witness, but you've proven to be more divisive than decisive. Wordplay! You'll see, in time. The testimony so far has merely been a review of the facts. The proof comes next. Care to elaborate, Prosecutor Gavin? When Mr. Valent entered the hospital room, the victim had already been shot. As his next testimony will prove. Right. The real fight is about to begin. But the gun that he said he used... the excuse that he used was that he only verified the type of gun that it was fired from. Dude, you're so shit at your job, Clavier. Just take another bullet and fire it with the gun and then compare the rifling marks. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do to confirm this or refute it. And then, of course, the bullet markings on the new bullet in the clown forehead is going to be different. So contrast the two and make sure that the evidence doesn't get mixed up. Bring it. Very well. The witness will now testify to the court. Help us determine who shot what. Help us determine who shot what. I arrived in the hospital room at the appointed time, which is to say, 11:12 p.m. 11:20 p.m. After discovering the body, I had fulfilled my obligation and called in the doctor. The doctor examined the body before the police arrived. He was quite clear about the time of death, 11:10 p.m. And the one in the room at the time was my partner, not me. Okay. Really? Really? Estimated time of death 11 to 11:30 p.m. and the doctor apparently is better than the coroner? Those times are rather close, you have to admit. You're talking about an alibi established over a matter of minutes. To use a 10-minute discrepancy as the basis of your alibi is easy to explain in this situation, I judge. For example, take our debut hit signal, 13 Years Hard Time for Love. Due to the song, press the play button and it will play for 2 minutes 15 seconds. Do it 100 times, the result is the same. Their debut single was only 2 minutes and 15 seconds long? What a ripoff. Magic is a world of utmost precision. Hocus pocus requires admirable focus. And in the time of death determined by the doctor, there is an incontrovertible truth. Very well. Prosecution warns us that we're dealing with rather precise times, and we can expect the cross-examination to require the same level of precision. I'm going to present imprecision to refute your precision, lest we blur the focus of this case so clearly demands. Baseless remarks will result in a penalty. Carry on, Mr. Wright. Carry on, right. I mean, it's probably not what they're going to have me do. Okay, yeah. Damn. Well, I gave it a shot to run it through. Just make it quick. Basil enjoys the text going across the box. Hell yeah. I don't buy over a matter of minutes. Precise is right. Impressing with impunity will earn me a nice penalty too. Better focus on one thing, the time of death. I don't think I'm stepping out on a limb to say I have some doubts about this. How could the doctor be so precise with the time? We do usually only get an estimated time of death, true. Oh, I should have pressed it first. I'm not so sure I've heard of a verified time of death. Magic revels in making the complex appear simple, but the reality is opposite. The reality is the opposite. What appears complex in this case is a simple matter of subtraction. I see another person has done their arithmetic homework. The point here is the IV the victim was taking. It's quite visible in the photograph of the scene. You mean the one that is not inside of him right now? Recall what we heard earlier about the victim, Magnifi Gramarye's schedule. Every night at 11, Magnifi took an IV drip for 30 minutes. You can see the IV bag right there, yes. Now, look a little closer. Follow the tube down from the bag to the end. The needle's been removed. Doubtlessly, it fell out when he was shot. That would seem to be the case. When the needle comes out, the IV no longer drips. You can just measure the remaining IV liquid. Precisely. The IV liquid functions, for our purposes, as an hourglass of sorts. This is how the doctor determined the time of death. From the amount remaining in the bag, it was determined that the IV had stopped 10 minutes after administration began. I see. And we're under the assumption here that, it wasn't pulled out normally earlier. And so it was. When I, Valant, entered that room, 10 minutes had passed since that horrible crime had was committed. And this is proof. Well, Mr. Wright? Huh. Did that seem important? That seemed really important. Well, seeing how it is the biggest clue we have to the time of death, I'd say it's very important. Agreed. It'd be hard to imagine a more precise way to determine the time. Behold the power of arithmetic! Very well. The witness will add this detail to his testimony. Sometimes the most magical thing of all is the truth. "30 minutes required to administer full IV. From the amount remaining, IV stopped 10 minutes after administration began." I don't know. I mean, these IVs are usually, secured in place. I don't think a gunshot would remove it and then neatly place it to the side like that. If it did somehow jostle it out of his arm, it would be somewhere completely fucking different. Let's press this, and if I get punished, let's talk about it more. Did you notice the IV yourself, by any chance? When first I entered the room, the stench of gunpowder assailed me. Next, the mark of death upon my mentor's forehead. And then, his left arm did I spy a rose, drooping and wilted. Its thorn, the discarded IV needle. A rose, meaning red, drooping and wilted. Yet the picture, his arm has no sign of blood on it, so that IV had not been there. Why, you might be a suspect. Indubitably so. I might say it's thanks to my lucky color. Your lucky color? Indeed. Even today I wear it proudly upon my suspect self. For it always, without fail, brings me luck. Why, when Zack and Val won their first Magician's Grand Prix. Yes, the very one held by the Association of International Magicians. I was adorned in this attire then too. And our trophy, a bust. Oh, what a day that was. This is one trip down memory lane no one needs. My lucky color. Yes, indeed. And that IV too. I say, I think 'twas hued especially for me, Valant. For me, Valant. That does seem to be the case, indeed. Well, Mr. Wright, any thoughts on this testimony? Valant sure looks happy with himself. Okay, how about this lucky color testimony? Was hued especially for me, Valant. I mean, is this a blue bag or a white bag that is colored blue for artistic reasons and the contents is green? Well, let's get very literal with him and say that, hey, why do you know the exact color of the IV? It certainly sounds like your lucky colors brought you plenty of luck, but not this time. Mr. Valant, your lucky colors betrayed you. I'm afraid you've lost me. Your Honor, the witness's testimony just now clearly contradicts the evidence. What? Please recall my warning at the beginning of this cross-examination, Mr. Wright. Baseless accusations will be duly penalized. I hope this latest accusation is well-based. Don't worry, I've got all your bases right here. Very well. Let's hear the defense's claim. Where is your evidence that contradicts what Mr. Valant has told us? Well, he said it was the same hue as his clothes. Crime scene tells all, Your Honor. The photo of a crime scene? Oh, this talk of color has me yearning for black and white, clear-cut simplicity. Tell us, all right. Just where's the contradiction in this photo? My pleasure. And I assure you it's quite simple. But I can't promise anything in black and white. Let's hear what Mr. Wright has to say. What in this photo contradicts the witness's testimony? Well, the color of the IV. Valant Gramarye, let's get one thing straight about your lucky color. It's yellow, yes? Kind of takes the mystery out of it, but yes. Something wrong with yellow, Mr. Wright? Yes, there is. Decisively wrong, in fact. Take another look at the photo of the crime scene. What's this? Confusion, doubt. Tell us, what do your elderly eyes spy? Even my elderly eyes can see a problem here, Mr. Valant. Look at that IV bag. What is this? What? Foul magic. It would be hard to call the IV liquid yellow, and I'm afraid no magic was involved in the taking of this photograph. Alakaz, no! Hey, rabbits, birds, flags. What does this mean? This is some kind of mistake. Yes, Prosecutor Gavin, your witness's mistake. The greener they are, the harder they fall. I suppose there's no substitute for experience. Valant Gramarye, as you reminded us several times, your lucky color is yellow, but the IV is clearly not. Well, this contradiction can mean only one thing. To think, you almost had me. I see your true colors now, Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. Something like you'd like to tell us, Prosecutor Gavin? As far as this court can tell, the witness's testimony does contradict the evidence. Yes, a contradiction. One that I shall be pleased to hand right back to Mr. Wright. How do you mean? How? The witness has made no mistakes. I agree at a glance the IV liquid does appear a sort of greenish yellow. But I assure you, the liquid itself is quite yellow. Yellow liquid? How can you say that? As far as I can tell from this photo, it's green. Yes, but what color is the IV bag itself? The bag? You mean the plastic bag on the hook? It looks like I want to say a light blue? Precisely. Figured it out yet? Put a yellow liquid in a blue bag and you get green. This, incidentally, is the liquid's true color. I see. Your explanation does have a ring of truth to it.
Objection!
Phoenix is tired of your bullshit. As I thought. There's no substitute for experience, Prosecutor Gavin. What? You may tell a good tale, but you've just proven something rather grave. For you, that is. Grave? The liquid in the IV bag is yellow, yes. But how did this witness know that? It's quite unnatural when you think about it. You did think about it, didn't you? Your Honor, the defense requests an explanation from the witness. At the scene of the crime, the IV liquid appears to be green. So let me ask, how did the witness know the IV liquid was actually yellow? Alakazam! Mr. Wright, you will explain this at once! The witness clearly knew the color of the IV liquid, so I'm sure it means something, but what? I can think of only one possibility, Your Honor. The witness, Valent Gramarye, has testified that the IV liquid was yellow because he knew the IV liquid's color. From the facts before us, the answer is clear. The witness knew that the IV liquid was yellow. Why? Because he'd seen it before. But not inside the blue bag we see in the photo. He saw the liquid by itself, in a clear, colorless bag. I suppose he would have to, but I'm still not clear as to what this all means. Ask yourself, how would he know if he didn't work at the hospital? That's where you'll find the meaning, Your Honor.
Objection!
I'm afraid I find nothing. So what if he knew the IV liquid's color? Leave the getting excited over absolutely nothing to our teeny bopper fans, yeah?
Objection!
The IV liquid is the only evidence proving the time of death. A 30-minute hourglass with 20 minutes worth of sand remaining. Your claim, Prosecutor Gavin. I remember it well. However, there's a critical difference between an hourglass and an IV bag. Wait. I know. An hourglass uses sand, but an IV bag uses liquid. I'm right? Well, as much as it pains me to say this, Your Honor, no. Unlike the sands through an hourglass, IV liquid enters the patient's body, at which point, like magic, it disappears. However, what if the amount of IV liquid had increased? You couldn't tell, could you? After all, there's no way of knowing how much went in.
Objection!
Let me get this straight, right? You're saying the witness watered down the victim's IV bag? Not with water, but with IV liquid. That's how you knew the IV liquid was yellow. Now wait! I said wait! How might an amateur such as myself essay to perform such a task?
Objection!
I'm an amateur too, but I can pour water into a cup.
Objection!
I'm afraid there's quite a big difference between a cup and an IV bag. I missed a line. Quite. Can you prove our witness is capable of such a feat? He has a point, amateurs. I, at least, would have some difficulty pouring IV liquid into that bag. You don't need to be an expert to see the look on the witness's face. He added liquid to that IV to throw off the time of death. I tire of these fairy tales lacking evidence. Well, Mr. Wright, any solid evidence to bring us back down to earth? Valent Gramarye, I'm afraid your magic won't serve you well in a life of crime. Might I ask what you're strongly suggesting? Magic relies on props, and props become evidence. Our witness was certainly able to increase the amount of IV liquid in the bag. All he had to do was work a little magic, and the prop was a small syringe.
Take that!
The victim's syringe? It's the perfect prop for the magically increasing IV trick, and easily enough for an amateur to use.
Objection!
What kind of evidence is that? The syringe was clean, not a trace of liquid in it.
Objection!
Don't you find that odd, Prosecutor Gavin? What? The victim had the syringe to administer his insulin shots. There should have been traces of insulin left inside. More importantly, if he got injected with it, you would see traces of the blunting of the needle. As well as, traces of his DNA on the needle as well. Well, Valen Gramarye, as you pointed out yourself, the IV liquid makes a perfect clock. One that you could manipulate as will. One that you could manipulate at will. Alcazarg! Azog. I do believe, well, with this being his first, that the burden of this trial has been a bit too much to bear for Prosecutor Gavin. I'm afraid that, while there is a doubt as to the amount of IV liquid in that bag, the time of death cannot be proven. And that brings our trial to a close for today. Well, maybe I could squeeze an extra day out of this. I can do a little much-needed investigation work. I see there are no objections. Truly, there's no substitute for experience. Nothing blinds one to the truth so effectively. A word to the wise. Underestimate the young, and you'll sweep your feet out from under you. In a way you never ever expected. You see, I know exactly what you're thinking. Oh? What's he talking about? You say the witness used the syringe to manipulate the level of the IV liquid. But there is no proof. There's no proof he didn't do it either. Yes, quite true. Huh? He's admitting it? Nor was this witness quite as decisive as I'd hoped. This I admit. After all, why linger in the past when the future holds so much? You have something in mind, Prosecutor Gavin? Proof, fair judge. I have another way to prove my case. With evidence, no less. What's this? This is the victim. Magnifi Gramarye's diary. Diary? After going into the hospital, Magnifi began writing his memoirs, it seems. The story of his birth, his startling debut, and meeting his disciples. It seems he intended for the last chapter to end quite appropriately with his death. Wait, that book doesn't say what the reason was, does it? The reason why his disciples couldn't refuse his last request? Sadly, it does not. What's important here is on the last page. Apparently, the victim wrote in his journal that night, even after the IV had begun at 11 p.m. Let's read it, shall we? The night's IV is in, maybe the last. I leave the rest of them. The first should come soon. The journal may end here or may go on, but not long. That depends on his hand. All that is left is to mine is to lay down the pen. Okay, good. I did read it all. This does appear to have been written just before his death. The court accepts this into evidence. Oh, wow. Read the very last part with particular care. That depends on his hand. Of course, by his, he refers to our defendant, Zach Gramarye. That would make sense, yes. He was the first scheduled visitor after all. Can we, look at it? At all? Can we, look into it, please? Thank you. This is the last page. The diary ends here. Huh? What's this? It looks like the page was ripped out? Oh, now, isn't that interesting? Hold on. The first should come soon. It may go on, but not long. So, I mean, the page afterwards is very clearly, oh, if the journal might end if I get shot in the forehead, but it'll continue if I don't. And then there's the extra page afterwards. So you're not entirely wrong where this is referring to Zach Gramarye. That's what I wanted to get across. But look at what he said before that. This journal may end here or may go on. It may go on. Magnifie Gramarye intended to write again. That is, if Zach Gramarye didn't pull the trigger. Wow, even your evidence is sloppy. I see the defense understands the meaning of this. The victim's diary does not go on. It ends. Because Magnifie's life was brought to an end by the defendant, Zach Gramarye. Prosecutor Gavin, are you certain that Magnifie Gramarye wrote this? There's no mistaking his handwriting. Well, this does seem to be significant. According to this, Magnifie did intend to continue his diary. Yet, if his diary ended here, which plainly it did, then the one who pulled the trigger was the first visitor, Zach Gramarye. Well, how do you like me now, Air Wright? Still too green for your tastes, hmm? He's right about the diary being pretty clear. Still, I find it hard to believe. Let's look at this. That he'd overlook such an obvious problem with his precious evidence. Well, Mr. Wright, the witness's testimony we heard was lacking. But put together with this evidence, it seems quite sufficient for a case. If the diary is accepted like this, the trial's over. Maybe it's time for me to show them something. No need. I don't like anything about this situation. The judge is already getting twitchy with his gavel. So I better show them something quick, or else. I'm left with no choice but to show them my own evidence. What? You have some evidence that overturns this diary? Just you don't have to present that. You just have to show that there's very obviously a page torn out, which means that something else was written, something else that was very inconvenient for the killer, which means something was written afterwards. And you don't even need to show what. It's enough to destabilize the entire premise of this piece of evidence. Very well. Please show us your evidence, Mr. Wright. Incidentally, don't even think of showing us this diary I've just shown to the court. Now that we've come this far, I hope you have something a little more decisive. Show us evidence that proves the victim continued writing his diary. Alright, I'd be happy to. And the decisive evidence proving that the diary didn't end with this page is... First, take a close look at this diary. Note that a page has been clearly ripped out. I hadn't noticed that at all. That's why we're still here talking about this. As it just so happens, I have here what I believe to be the missing page. Alika, I don't believe it! Looking at this page, it's hard to imagine that the first visitor that night shot... It's hard to imagine the first visitor that night shot Magnifie Gramarye. That's the defense's position. Wait, let me see that! What in Sam Hill? Why, this is the continuation of the victim's diary! Why is he so happy about it? Note the torn edge on the page. It's a perfect match with the torn remains on the last page in Magnifie's diary. Quite remarkable. Would you care to explain what all this means, Air Attorney? The diary continued after his first visitor came, which means that the victim was still alive after Zach Gramarye left, leaving no one to take his life but the second visitor. Valent Gramarye! No. No! This handwriting, too, matches that on the other pages. This is, without a doubt, the genuine article. But wait, that's impossible! The old man couldn't have written that. Finally. You just couldn't resist, could you, Airwhite? Resist what? Presenting solid evidence? Judge? Yes, Prosecutor Gavin. Might I request that we put the current cross-examination on hold? Prosecution would like to call a new witness. Prosecutor Gavin? This evidence overturns the current witness's... I ask only to put it on hold. Please. My new witness has a very, very important piece of testimony to give. 5 minutes, no more. I promise, Your Honor. Well, if you put it that way. Mr. Wright, what's your take on this? Well, Your Honor, judging from his enthusiasm, we'll have to hear what this new testimony... We'll have to hear this new testimony sooner or later anyway. But might as well just be sooner. Then, this is highly, highly irregular. We will put the current cross-examination on hold. The witness may step down. Now, Prosecutor Gavin, please, bring the surprise witness to the courtroom. I had a bad feeling just then. That ripped-out page was too obvious. He must have known. I should have known it was a bad sign all around. Oh, hi! What are you doing here? Holding trial with no audience is a first, even for me, Prosecutor Gavin. I beg the court's understanding. But I had to make a judiciary deal with the witness to secure his testimony. A judiciary deal? The details of his testimony may have some legal ramifications, shall we say. Though, I thought it best to contain the information to this room. Very well. And you are the witness, I gather? Yes, sir. State your name and occupation for the record. My name's Drew Misham. I'm a painter. A painter? You're somehow related to this case? No, well, not per se. I have one simple question for this witness. Mr. Misham, was it? Do you know what this is? Oh, yeah. I know it well. How's that possible? Have you seen this diary page somewhere before? Oh, yeah. I mean, I made it. You... what? You made it? Yes. You might call it one of my works. Prosecutor's office received a tip-off yesterday. The legal evidence has been prepared for the trial of Zach Gramery. Legal evidence? I initiated an investigation and found this witness. A painter to the world at large, Drew Misham has another side, you might say. He is skilled in making perfect reproductions of certain things. Forgeries, in other words. Forgeries? Well, so we are to understand that this page here is a fake, prepared by a certain defense attorney.
Objection!
Hold it! I didn't prepare this evidence!
Objection!
Ah, the attorney speaks. Something about this page, I presume. What is he saying? It makes no sense. After all, it was you who presented this evidence to us, Phoenix Wright. Witness! Mr. Misham, was it? Who requested this forgery? Who was your client? That? I don't know. What? Most of my clients prefer to remain anonymous, even to me. I make the items they want and receive my payment. That's the extent of my contact with them.
Objection!
But there's no proof this is a fake. It's a fake. Huh? To avoid just this sort of problem, I always put a special mark on my works. I can say without a doubt, this is mine. Mr. Wright? You just presented illegal evidence to this court. My court. It was careless of me. That's all I can say. It was all a trap. A fatal trap. Mr. Wright? Yes. Do you have an explanation for yourself? If I did, would the court hear it? Probably not. Forging evidence is a serious crime, and presenting it in court, a serious mistake. A fatal mistake for an attorney. Fatal too, perhaps, for your client, I fear. Tell me, what kind of defendant relies on forged evidence? The answer is quite clear. A guilty one!
Objection!
Your Honor, wait! I understand that presenting forged evidence in court is a serious crime, but you cannot hold my client responsible for actions I undertook as an individual. I'm sorry, Mr. Wright. But you... Gavin over here was being incredibly petty, being like, oh hey, don't present the fucking diary to me, even though, you know, there's a perfectly obvious ripped page right there. You need something perfect. And sure enough, fucking Gavin set up the forged evidence. I know... He didn't actually set up the forged evidence. He set up the scenario for the forged evidence, because honestly, the ripped page there was more than enough to prove that something else was written. Another close call, I dare say. And the prosecutor's office hadn't received that hot tip. Where's my accent now? Everything would have gone to the way you wanted it to, yeah? I even gave you a chance. Too bad you decided not to think before embarrassing yourself. I see no need for further discussion on this matter. Special witness dismissed. Special witness dismissed. Words are impossible. Mr. Attorney? Yes? Could I ask your name? Phoenix Wright. Mr. Wright, I have seen and studied many people, but none like you. I'll remember you, Mr. Wright. Though I deeply regret having to declare a verdict in this way, this trial is over. You have the right to find a new attorney and make an appeal. However, this court must... Your Honor? Yes, Mr. Zack? There is one thing I wish to make clear. Today, in this courtroom, you cannot declare me guilty. It is impossible. I'm afraid the defendant is quite mistaken. I most certainly have the authority to declare a verdict on you. Except, tell me, how do you plan on announcing your verdict when your defendant does not exist? Doesn't exist? What are you talking about? I am talking about this! Oh! Mr. Eddingmar! The defendant's escaped! Find him! Quick! Bailiff! Close all exits from the building! On the double! He must not be allowed to escape! That day, in the courtroom, a miracle occurred. The defendant, Shady Eddingmar, aka Zack Gramarye, not just escaped from court, he literally, unbelievably, vanished. Right before the bailiff's eyes. No one ever saw him again. Not since that day. This is the Gramarye miracle. No verdict was declared. After all, the defendant didn't exist. That's how it happened. The trial of magician Zack Gramarye vanished, along with him for all eternity. The mysteries that remained behind were all solved, however, but not until 7 years later. To be continued. Tomorrow.